like to take this time to welcome you to Follow Me Conference. We are here just wanting to discuss what has been going on. Obviously, there's a lot of things that are going on in our world today, and we just wanted to reach out to all of you that are going to be listening here, just so that we can update you on a few things and just really move forward. And we're not letting this COVID-19 thing stop us, and just feeling that God's given us a platform to be able to reach out in a different way. And so wanted to get together to talk about a couple of things, talk about what God is doing in our churches and in us individually. But first I want to start off, I think it's going to be important just to talk about what Follow Me Conference is and how that really started, because we've had a number of conversations over the years regarding this, and as God's brought us together, we felt that God gave us a platform to start this conference. And so why don't we share with the listeners how this all started and what the real purpose is behind all of this.
Well, we got together a few years ago, a bunch of us from various churches, and we met up in the mountains and together to pray, seek the Lord. We spent the night and just really had a heart and a burden for not only our youth, but equipping our leaders. Mm-hmm. And so what we wanted to do was put on a youth conference that really was geared for that. You know, a lot of times we've been to different conferences and stuff, and they're geared towards more the youth minister and things, and we want to gear it towards those that serve alongside of us, and to better equip them, get the information in their hands. And so that was our prayer, and we started with that.
Yeah, it's been really cool to see God work, and definitely something that it was the Lord. We can't say that we manufactured it or it was us, but just our hearts united and a common vision, and then of course through prayer, and then of course I think that the support of our pastors, was huge. Having our senior pastors back us and support us and pray for us, and so that was really cool. So it's really just been God doing the work, and then us being obedient, I think, step by step, year by year. So it's been really cool.
I know in youth ministry, we've seen it so often that people can become so fluid, that there's a lot of new people constantly, whether it's leaders or whether it's ministers that are new, taking over a ministry. And talking with Dustin, you've been doing this for so long, and hearing from different guys. I remember in those beginning meetings we were talking about how when you guys started there, you just handed a key and said kind of good luck. And our hearts were to come alongside those new guys and girls and give them the tools that they needed so that they can minister to the youth effectively.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yeah, I know God's given us a platform, I believe, that allowing us to have experiences in a number of churches that are represented right here, and serving in a lot of different capacities. And I think really from my heart, I know you, Dustin, and a few others that have been around for a little while, just starting to see that we're starting to recognize that we're a little bit older. And so because of that, thinking about okay, what do we pass on to this next generation? And not just thinking about the next generation of youth, but the next generation of leaders. And those next generation of leaders, how important it is, just like you were talking about, Joel, just giving them those tools and those things that they can use to make their ministries effective. When we started, it was just giving us some keys and just saying, hey, go for it. And so that happens, I think, still in some cases, but we have a lot that we can impart, I believe, so that somebody coming in and being handed those keys knows what to do with those keys, and so I think it can be more effective.
And I think a big part of that is getting their mind on ministry. Not so much just here, go do a youth event. Because it's not about the youth event. It's about the prayer and why the youth event. What's the point behind a beach trip, a winter camp, a summer camp? It's those are the things that are more important than the event themselves. And the ministry behind it and thinking about ministry. I think that's a big part of it, because when you come in and you don't have a mindset of how ministry works and what to think about, that's the thing where you have to teach people okay, here's what I learned. When it comes to doing ministry, when it comes to thinking about ministry, when it comes to equipping, when it comes to these things. And so having that mindset and what to pray for, how to pray, what to ask the Holy Spirit to lead you in, those are the things I believe are more important than just, again, I mean, we can do business classes and learn how to organize. And also it's more the motive behind the event than the event itself.
Yeah, and I think with kind of like the world's mindset, in the world they want to have these fast facts on how to make things successful and using these 10 steps, these business models, and thinking that is the key to it, and thinking that numbers and all these other indicators are going to translate into being successful and define what success is and when it comes to ministry. And just like you're talking about, it's not. It's really the heart behind all these things. And, we go to games, or we used to go to games. So you go to games, go to stadiums, and, they can foster excitement. And a lot of people can be there and cheering on, and you have large crowds, but does that really constitute success?
Well, obviously not right now during the COVID. I mean, we can't gather, and so numbers actually don't matter at all.
There's no gauge. And one of with talking about that, we want long-term ministry. Not just the hype, not just the excitement, not just the one big event. What about years down the line? And I know one of the themes that we've talked about now for the last few years, whether we do the conferences or we're getting together as youth ministers, is discouragement is such just a big thing for people in ministry, whether someone that's on staff or whether that's someone even volunteer. And I know we've tried to hit that of our hearts are not just to equip and give tools, but those conferences that we do, the times that we do things, we want to bring encouragement and kind of fuel the fire.
And the discouragement, it can set in, and it does set in for us as well. Even though we've been involved in ministry for a while, it's just discouragement is there and it's real. But how much more so now with this COVID-19, this quarantine, all these things, and maybe we want to touch on that. And Alex, what are some of the things maybe that the Lord's shown you through this, and as He's spoken to you through everything that's happening right now in our world?
Yeah, it's been, of course, a whirlwind of emotions, right? And everything's changing so fast. So one day it's like, hey, we're having church, we're having this event, right? Our calendars went from, full summer to now nothing, But really, I think two schools of thought is we can either just kind of say, man, like, what, I'm done with this year, right? I know personally for me, I was saddened. Kobe Bryant passes away. COVID-19 happened. It's like, what is going on, right? And almost like just wanting to reject the whole year as a whole and just kind of fast forward. But what is, or how does God want to redeem 2020? How does He want to redeem this situation? And so really for me, I think it's been, hey, you can be, a little frustrated with what's going on, but what does He want to do, not only in my life, but of course in our ministries? And I think the thing that comes to mind is continuing, of course, to redeem the Sundays and the Wednesday nights that we have not at the church, and just redeeming those times, of course. I know for me personally, to continue to grow and to deepen my intimacy with the Lord, I think has been huge. I can look back now and I think, man, I was kind of comfortable where I was at. I was kind of set in my ways and my routines. And now this is shaking everything up. And so really fresh vision, of course, but it all begins with that intimacy and spending time with the Lord. So I know for me personally, that's been huge. I'm praying that it's overflowing, of course, into the things I'm doing now, in the ways that we're having church. But I think it's so cool to see people connecting despite the four walls. I love it. We're being the church despite the gatherings, and we're seeing connections. I mean, we're seeing people get saved. I mean, we're seeing hundreds of people get saved. And I think about revival, that's what it is, right? It's this great awakening, and it's really happening. And I think sometimes, though, I have to remove the standard of, like, what I think revival is. And, like, man, the Walsh revival was happening, and there was churches that, or bars that are being closed down. Well, they're closed down right now. The bars are closed down. I mean, to me, right? This is revival. And so everything that we have wanted and have been praying for, it really is happening before our eyes, and so we can either enjoy the journey, enjoy the ride, or we can just sit in our in our empty offices and empty sanctuaries and just kind of whine about it. But I'm excited to see what God is doing, and I think what He's going to continue to do once we're back to business. So
awesome, yeah, that's awesome. There's a lot of things that you're saying in there, especially with just understanding that you mentioned redeeming the time, and this isn't a waste. We can all kind of go into a shell. We can do maybe what the world is doing, and just kind of say, hey man, let this thing overtake us and overtake the calling that God has on us. But like you're saying, this is just a reset. This is a time for us to rethink a few things, and so awesome. What about you guys?
Yeah, I think it's been interesting because we've seen everything stripped away. Normal is gone now. And for us as servants, and we all lead ministries here, and so we're all thinking about our leaders, and our leaders have taken a different kind of role, and hopefully that's a lot of people who might be watching would be people who aren't maybe the head of that ministry, and thinking about their role, and what this time has really forced so many people to do is to be the Mary and do the better thing, and kind of put the Martha somewhat on pause. And not that we're not to be servant, of course there's different ways that we're to be doing that, but I think in ministry one of the things that can burn us out so quickly is just serving so much and forgetting the better part of sitting at Jesus' feet. And I know like for our the leadership that I get to lead, and different leaders that they don't have the option to be Marthas to some extent, and it's good, and that is the better thing. And I think God's rejuvenating a lot of people right now, and I'm excited to get back, because I think if we're all sitting at Jesus' feet, then God's going to be able to use us in awesome ways.
Yeah, I love that.
One of the things for us, we did a few different things where we combined our social media for junior high and high school. We had our own Instagram, our own Facebook, and things like that. And what we found was junior high being 2 years here in Chino, why don't we combine them? That way we realize things like the parents are on Facebook, not the youth. So we're posting that from our Instagram, connecting the Facebook, and the parents are getting our teachings and they're getting all the information. The youth are seeing it all on Instagram, but it's great because the junior high are seeing what the high schooler are doing, so they kind of have an expectation what's to come. And I've had parents already say, hey, saw Josh's teaching that you guys posted. I saw your teachings. Great study. Thank you. And so one of the things we're learning is also getting it in the hands of the parents and connecting with them. But the thing that I think, just like Joel was talking about with the leaders, is we've been having all of our leaders do devotionals. 3 to 5 minute quick thing, get in, get out, share your heart. What's the Lord showing you through this time? I just got one last night, from Ashley and David, 2 of our leaders. They're married. They were actually both in our youth group years ago, and I did their wedding many years ago now. But they did one and sent it to me. It was wonderful. We're going to post it probably next week. But seeing how God is speaking to them, and I think it's a valuable tool for not only the leaders themselves, but also for the youth. For the youth to see, it's not just about the staff minister, the person who's in charge, but to see hey, God wants to speak to you and through you. And so seeing how God is speaking through other leaders, and hopefully raising up youth to have them do devotions and have them do things. So utilizing those kinds of things.
Yeah. Well, for sure the gospel doesn't stop.
Definitely.
And it doesn't matter that there's a virus. It doesn't matter that there's these stipulations that the state and the country is putting in place. Obviously, we respect those things, and we're navigating through it. But there's other ways that we can minister. And so, kind of some of the things that you guys are talking about, we got used to a way of doing church.
Definitely.
But that's what we end up doing, is do church instead of sometimes doing ministry. There's a difference. There's a difference doing church and doing ministry. And I think that's the things that we, in fact, as we were talking about with the Follow Me conference when we were first implementing that, I think that's really the heart behind it. We wanted to do ministry, we wanted to teach those that are listening in right now and those who have attended the conference how to do ministry and not just do church,
Right.
and not just do youth group, not have events, and all those things will come, but all that stuff is a fruit of having a healthy, well-balanced environment and connection with the kids, and us really having that connection first with the Lord, and that translating over into how we minister. And I think that's why things will grow effectively and deep when those things happen, because then the Lord's doing it. We can foster excitement, we can foster different things, but there isn't necessarily a depth to it. And I think that's what we fight against.
Well, and I think one of the things, like for me, a lot of our students are homeschooled Christians, grown up in the Christian home. And I often tell them, I want you to have your own walk. I want you to believe in what you believe in, not just because you're raised in it, but because you believe in it. And this is a powerful time right now for them to see, like, hey, I'm not at church, so am I reading? Am I praying? Am I seeking the Lord? And it's something for them, at our age, junior high, high school, young adults, for them to come in contact with the living God, to see that God's word is powerful, and that it changes lives and transforms. And, I know for me, when I first became a Christian in high school, I didn't read the Bible. I took it to church Wednesdays and Sundays and read surfing magazines and skating magazines, but not my Bible. And then I realized the importance of getting in the Word and studying and how it changed my life. And that's the thing, we want to do is equip our students, equip our leaders, and hopefully equip the people listening to us is, hey, how can we encourage you? How can we build you up? And because, again, we're here together doing this because you guys build me up, and I get the privilege of being a part of your life. And we want to build each other up and remind each other, like you said, the gospel's never stopped. And it's powerful. It transforms lives, whether it's through an internet, whether it's through something else. And
that's why I think that it's important to not just, it's challenging, I know for us too, because we were doing some calls, like some Zoom calls, and trying to make it fun, and we would have a game set up, and I'm like, these kids can only handle like 15 minutes of digital time, at least a Zoom call. So we really have to make good use of it. And so making sure that we're giving them the word, because this game isn't going to change our lives, but Jesus will, And so like, I want to give them Jesus, so like our studies, I know for us, we've had to change our time frame. It's not that we're like appeasing or, serving them and meeting all their needs and their wants, but to really take advantage of the time that we have with them in front of the screen, whether it's a study on Wednesday night or whether it's a Zoom call. Because I found, and even before when we were meeting in person, like we didn't do games too often, and we love games and love messing around. But we would have separate nights for those things because we knew Wednesday night, like we only have them for an hour and a half, and they're at school, 7 hours a day, and so we really had to like make good use of that time. So I think that's the key too, is like you were talking about, just giving them what really matters. We can like be their friend and like play games, but like I want to lead you and I want to show you like, man, what Jesus can do in your life and what he can do through your life. And like you said, those things will change a person. An encounter with the living God. We'll see, and like I'm sure I've seen so many students, Dustin, that have and now have kids and are married. It's all because you gave them Jesus when they were 15 and now they're 35, and they're like, man, it was because of the word, and it's a privilege for sure.
Yeah, and something you said, Jay, struck me about ministry and church, and because of our human nature, we just get into struts, we get into routines, and what I like about this season is it's shaken our ministry up at least, and we have to get more creative. We got to think outside the lines and outside the walls, because nothing's happening in the walls. And so one of the things that we are actually in the process of doing right now is some care packages to our students, and it's cool to get the leaders involved. And we just went around and looked what was around our junior high room, and got some snacks and just wrote some letters, and knowing that as those are going out, as we speak, that that they're ministering to students. And it's cool because the leaders are seeing where the students live, and just something that would never normally happen.
Yeah.
But I'm like, why is this not normally happening?
Yeah.
Where there should be this partnership outside of just Sundays and Wednesdays. There should be this connection. I mean, one of the other things that we were able to do was make some phone calls to families. I'm like, when was the last time? Of course, like, we're talking with families, but intentionally going through a list of our students and saying, just no agenda, just how are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are we not doing that regularly? And so for me, it's been just shaking up and stirring up in a good way, and knowing that we're not going to go back to normal. We're going to minister to the families, not just on Sundays and Wednesdays, but
Yeah, those are awesome things. I know for us at La Habra, what we are doing and what's been effective, we're doing some Zoom stuff and discipleship and all those things, but in the last 2 weeks, what we've been doing is we got a list of all of the seniors that are supposed to be graduating, and they're not having their graduation, and their world's just gotten shaken up as more so than I think a lot of the other high schoolers, because a lot of them had planned on prom and graduation and just kind of how that year was going to end, and then all of a sudden everything's put to stop. And so what we did is we got a list of all of them, and we've just been going to their houses and contacting their parents to kind of set it up. And so it's a surprise to them. But we've been showing up, caravanning over there, setting up in their front yard, bringing them out, and we do a couple of worship songs and share the word with them, kind of bring church to them. That's kind of the idea. But just sing a couple songs, share the word with them, pray over them and their families, and just give them an encouragement and let them know that we love them and how far that has gone. And it's just been amazing to get some of the feedback, not only from the students, but the parents, and to see them as you're worshiping. And it's an emotional time because they're sitting there, the kids are crying, parents are crying, we have masks on, but we're crying. And so it's just been an amazing thing. And just like you're saying, so simple. It's like, why didn't we do these things before?
Yeah.
You get used to being in the church and everybody kind of coming to you, and you kind of do church. And
Well, I think that's a big part. I mean, like you were saying, like, how come we normally didn't do that? And I think the big question that we want to raise for everybody is, what is your new normal going to be? So when the quarantine's up, things like that, and for those listening, for all of us, to really be in prayer, like, what is your new normal? Because I think one of the things that's going to be dangerous is going back to the busyness, going back to the rut, and just the routine of things. And we have to be in prayer and say, God, what is it that we did that needs to be tossed out?
Yeah.
And what is it that we're doing that we need to start utilizing more? I know for me, we were recording our teachings on phones, for myself and Josh, and weren't always posting them. But now we started a YouTube page. We're buying a new recorder. I believe it's a Zoom brand, and we're going to be recording our teachings better now, and making sure they get posted every week, because sometimes when it's on your phone, it gets recorded, sometimes it doesn't, things like that. And so I think really encouraging everybody to think, like, what is going to be our new normal? And that excitement that comes from us as the overseers of our ministry, passing that excitement down to our youth leaders. I know when I was Zooming the other day with our high school leaders, we talked about just this, and then we also talked about, like, not being negative, not being like, hey, here's an opportunity for us to be fresh, like you were saying. And we did something the other day, I forget whose idea it was, I think either Josh or junior high minister or somebody. There's a song I found out from Lego Movie 2, Everything's Not Awesome. And so we did a parody of it. It's on our YouTube channel. And if anybody knows me, like, I am anti doing that stuff. It's so cheeseball to me. And I love it. It came out pretty funny. It's pretty cool. And Mike Manzano, one of our high school leaders, produced it for us. And it was just a fun, simple thing. And, and the youth watched it on our Instagram and stuff and loved it. And, the parents, a lot of parents wrote to us and was like, hey, thank you. Thank you for loving our kids.
Awesome.
Thank you for being outgoing and during this amazing time, you know. And so it was simple. Each leader had just a simple part, did their part, and you know, and so just that, right? We want to think of like, what is our new normal?
Yeah, that's great. You know, one thing you mentioned, Dustin, I think is key is that sometimes we take the pressure and put on ourselves and think, man, I need to do all this. You know, and you guys are all mentioning leaders. We have leaders who are willing to say, hey, like, I'm available. Yeah. And how are we, even before this, how were we cultivating them, pouring into them, and using them? You know, I know for us, it's been key is, like, I know it's so freeing to know that I can just pour into them. And they're going to pour in, and there was like 12 to 14 of them, and then they're going to pour into all kinds of students. And so it really takes the pressure off of you and saying, man, like, I have to do this. It's like, no, I get to do this with these 14, these 12, you know, 5 leaders, or whatever you have. And then they're going to multiply and just like take the message and take the love out, you know, and really pour into these kids. And then even too, like having some student leaders, you know, having like that core group of kids that you're pouring into, it has been key for us. We're meeting with about 12 students who are in high school every Monday, but they have their friends' numbers who are in the ministry, and they're texting them, you know, and of course they're always more real with them than they are, you know, their youth leader, you know, and so they're getting to them on a more personal level, and that's been key, and so freeing to know, like, it's not just me, but there's a whole team of people behind me who are ready to do that. And so I know for me, that's been like my focus, if you might say, as far as in the ministry, in the practical, has been the leaders making sure that they're good, because if they're good, then I know we're going to be good, you know. Yeah. But if they're suffering and they're hurting, right, then I'm by myself, you know. But if, you know, they're good, then man, we're good, and we're, you know, we could do it together. And it's just so much sweeter. So that's great.
Yeah, I know. One of the passages that really ministered to me and just kind of was thinking about is a common passage for us, I'm sure, and those listening. But just in Joshua chapter 1, I think the key here as you start to move through Joshua is just in the very first verse after the death of Moses. And Joshua is being led into a new land, all kinds of different challenges, not really knowing everything he was going to be facing and how God was going to work it all out. But something had to die. And what had to die was that old system, right, the old system, the old way of doing things. And that's represented in the death of Moses. And for Joshua to go in and have this fresh vision, and here a number of times it's telling Joshua, hey, be strong and of good courage. And I think for us, we feel the pressure. You know, I don't know if you guys have gone home and been confused and watching Fox News or whatever, and you're watching things and all of a sudden you're like, oh man, what do I do? And thinking like, man, the world's coming to an end, and this thing's going to attack all of us. And so just trying to process all those things, you see all the numbers and this count of all the deaths and all the people that are being infected, and all those things could throw you for a loop. And you think about Joshua going into this new land and him, Lord just telling him, go into this land, you're going to have challenges, you're going to have battles that you're going to need to fight, but you need to be strong, you need to be courageous. Right. And you know, for those of us who've sensed that call to lead, this is when you lead. Yep. Right. This is the time when you lead and you step up, because this is what the Lord's called you to. But understand that he says, I'm not going to leave you nor forsake you. You know, a lot of times I think that the enemy's there and the fear is real, and it's a new land for us. This is a new thing for us. And how do we do this? I hate social media. I'm one of those old guys that just despise the social media, and so I've never been involved in that. I've never been a part of that, and now we're having to utilize it, and now we're having to do those things, and I'm having to grow in those ways, right? Because it isn't comfortable for me to do that. I'm the type that I'd rather be in front of a class and be teaching and be sharing the Word of God and in that kind of a setting, and to have to do it in other platforms. And so it's a learning curve. And so with that, there's some apprehension, but just some of the things that you were talking about, Alex, that how important it is to involve other people and other leaders, and you're able to have a group of people that can help carry those burdens. And I'm never going to be good at social media, and I'm proud of it. But I have some of those leaders that are pretty good at it, and
Yeah.
they have ideas, and they are just coming up with new things each and every day.
That's great.
One of the things, thinking of, I love Joshua and all those things, and be strong of great courage. One of the things that I think to remind everybody that is the empowerment of that, if you would, is love. And First John talks about the Gnostics had come in and had this superior knowledge and claiming but they didn't have love. And I think the thing that empowers us to do the seniors and going to their houses and the care packages for your junior hires and all those other things is we love them.
Yeah.
And equipping our leaders, we love them. And that's the heart behind it. And I think sometimes when we feel like, I don't know what to do, I don't even know where to start, well, it's the heart of love that motivates us to not only share the gospel, but all these acts of kindness or like you said, hey, I love them so much that I'm willing to learn social media and be on social media. I know for me, I don't like social media either. I don't mind using it. I don't like being on it. And yet, but I love our youth, and I want them to be equipped. And so that love needs to be that compelling force, that empowering thing that sends us out to not only share the gospel and equipping, but it motivates us to be in prayer, to think about what else we can do to minister to them.
Yeah, just real quick, I want to read this from 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 24 says, "He who called you is faithful, who also will do it." And that's why I think we have to, because I can tell you, for my own self, that when all this was all happening, it was kind of a little scary. We didn't know what, this is the first time ever this has happened. So it's like, man, what's going on? But remembering he's called me, he's called me to do this. And so I know he's going to enable me to do this, and really it's not going to be anyone else. I know my wife loves me, supports me. I know my pastor supports me, but the Lord, he's going to have to support me and do it in me because, they're afraid too, and they're fearful. And so it has to be the Lord who I'm banking on. And I think when you can really believe that, when we believe that, it really changes our attitude. It's almost like, hey, despite what's going on, and like we're talking about, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because he's called me, and I love these kids, and I want to see them know Jesus more and more every day. And so I'm going to do it, whatever it takes,
And that fear, if it's in us and we're sensing it, what about the youth? And what about the families? And so this is very real. But again, we've been called to lead. And so I need to draw off of what you're talking about, that understanding that the Lord is the one who's going to enable us and allow us to get through it. Obviously, we're not going to be cavalier in the sense of just say, hey, man, I'm going to do what I want. And because I think that's the wrong attitude and sends the wrong message. And so there's a balance in there. There's certain regulations and different recommendations. And so, working within that, but again, being creative in how we can minister even still, while still being compliant.
Yep. Right.
Amen.
One of the verses that I talked to Sammy Martinez from Calvary Chapel, Moreno Valley about, Philippians 1:6, being confident of this very thing, that he who has began a good work in you will complete it until the day of Jesus Christ. And I think that's it, right? We have to be confident. The Lord didn't put us in this race to pull us out of the race. He said, let us run with endurance. Let's keep our eyes fixed on the prize, right? And the Bible talks about the author and the finisher of our faith. And so that's not only for us, but like you said, that fear that we have to fight, that we have that, and that confidence gets spread to those that we minister to.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So what kind of things are we going to be doing then to add to this?
So some of the things that we're going to be doing with the Follow Me conference and just leading up, and hopefully our original objective for this year was to actually not have a conference this coming in September like we have in the last few years, but to push it out till January is going to work better in our schedule. And we didn't know that the virus was going to happen, and so it kind of works out to where I think we are able to use this platform to be able to reach out to those that have attended, those that maybe will attend, and those that whoever will reach. And some of the things that we came up with was wanting to have daily updates, not daily updates, weekly updates, whether we're doing panels and doing different interviews to be able to communicate with those that are listening, all those youth leaders, not only in our area but across the country, but also to have you guys write in and to ask questions. And those are questions that we can field. We talked about doing some very practical things and discussing some of the things we already mentioned, but very, very practical things that we're able to do while we're going through this period, as well as devotions. And so we're going to be doing weekly devotions that we'll be posting, just weekly encouragements. And with those devotions, there's also going to be a practical aspect to that as well. And so there's a number of things that we laid out, and we're praying still to see other ways that we can minister to you that are listening, so that we can better serve you. But I know that there's going to be a phone number and a website posted as you guys are listening to this, and you can get a hold of us with any questions, with any concerns, if you just need prayer. Again, we're going through a time where, again, there's a lot of fear. And some of you may be married, you may be in a relationship, and that strain can come on that relationship, and maybe you need some marital counsel. And I know, and so we've been around for a little while, and I know sometimes, especially for those that are in ministry, especially those that are pastors, for you to have any marital issues, that's taboo. And a lot of times that doesn't get often talked about. Right. And you as a minister, you as a pastor, or even you as a worker, you don't know who to go to. And understand that we're here for you. We're not going to breach any confidential things. We want to minister to you. We want to be able to encourage you and love you and direct you. And so feel safe that you can get a hold of us, and hopefully we'll have some.
We also want to remind everybody that the teachings, both of the main sessions and the workshops from our last 3 years, are posted on our Follow Me website, and so feel free to look into that and take the opportunity to go through them. And maybe you've listened to them. Maybe it'd be a good time to listen to them again and pray and glean some more ideas.
Yeah, definitely. It's something that I know I've challenged our leaders too, is in this time of not doing, is to really ask the Lord, are you still calling me to this? Because there's nothing worse than being somewhere where God doesn't want you to be, And so I think as we're not with these kids, and as we're home, as we're hearing the past messages, even ask them, the Lord, Lord, are you still calling me to this ministry? Because if you're not, then you're not doing any good for anyone. For your youth pastor, youth leader, for those around you, it's just going to impact in a negative way. And so, I would encourage those listening to take advantage of those resources. Some great studies from a lot of good guys. Larry Powers, Pastor Don McClure, Pastor Lance, and Lori on just being a man of God and a woman of God. I mean, really. If you listen to those studies and say it was okay, I would really question are you called? Because they're just challenge you, Right. And so really, they're there, they're available, and followmeconference.com. It's super cool. So.
Yeah, and if any of you are struggling, like you mentioned, some of you may be struggling and just getting to a place where you're questioning, what am I called? Before you quit, go and speak to your overseer and have a real conversation with them. If you are in that situation where you're thinking I don't know if I can go to them, you can call us. Yeah. That's another time to get a hold of us and talk to us and let us walk you through some of those things. And so sometimes you need to hear an outside voice to be able to get some wisdom and some direction in that, because, how many times have you felt like you weren't called? Today. Right. And so, we go through all those things, and so it could be very discouraging, and so we know that discouragement is real. And so, but please communicate, and that's going to be a very important thing to communicate.
Yeah.
And so,
that's good.
So
that's good.
Definitely. Yeah. Joel, anything else?
No, that's
Awesome.
good.
So, again, we'd like to take this opportunity just to thank you for listening in, and hopefully this was encouraging to you. We would love to hear from you. We'd love for you guys to continue to check in on the different things that we're doing. We're doing, as we mentioned, those devotions. We'll be posting those. We already talked about the messages being uploaded. And then be praying for us as we see what we're going to be doing as we move towards the future. But we want to keep you connected. We want to keep you encouraged. We want to keep you pressing on for the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so please continue to press on. We're praying for you. We're praying for you and your families and your churches. And let's all continue to work together. God bless you guys.
God bless you guys.